Hi everyone, it's Alexis with Project Management Made Simple. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you all some tips on becoming a project manager without experience. So before we dive into the tips, I did want to mention that everyone's situation is different. So this will serve as general advice. If you are listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, I have really specific questions and specific needs, then feel free to book me for coaching at projectmanagementmadesimple.com/services. There will be a link that is available for you below to book as well. So the first point is to research the responsibilities of a project manager and identify gaps. What this could look like is browsing through project manager job postings, documenting common responsibilities you see across these postings, putting that information into a Google sheet or into an Excel sheet, and then highlighting against each of those responsibilities where your gaps are and where perhaps you do have experience. What I will mention about project management is that although it is something that is a discipline and there are certain things that you need to do as required as a part of this profession, more often than not, when someone is coming to me asking this question, it turns out they do have some form of experience of project management. Now, it may not be enough to get them the project manager title, but it could be enough to get their foot in the door as something like an assistant project manager. And that is something that I will go into as well, are the roles that you can look at for entry level type project manager roles. And so what I mean by the comment of if someone comes to me, they usually maybe have some type of experience, it's that we can see project management pretty much everywhere. From my experience, I've been working with companies over 10 years now. I've been with 3 different companies, private, public, large, small. And in each of these companies, what I've seen that holds to be true is they are run through using projects. That is how we determine what work needs to get done, how work gets prioritized. Now, of course, that's not all of it, but more often than not, the spaces that I've been in, you're going to see projects, and projects are not going to be limited to a certain business function. The marketing team has projects, the sales teams have projects, the IT teams have projects, so everyone has projects. We can see this even if we look in terms of construction. If we are looking at if you're redesigning your home, that's a project. And so really what could be helpful here is defining what a project is. And so a project is going to be temporary. It has a finite start and end date, and it is unique. Those are the key elements of a project. And I'll leave the definition below of what a project is as defined by the Project Management Institute, who is the governing organization that offers the most well-known project management certification around the world, the Project Management Professional, also known as the PMP. And what you will find is that when you have an understanding of how a project is defined, then you'll be able to better see how your experience may be relevant to becoming a project manager in the future. Point number 2 is to become certified. So start with the Certified Associate in Project Management certification. The CAPM for short is a certification that is offered through the PMI, the Project Management Institute, which is the same organization that also offers the PMP, the Project Management Professional. And so if you are coming into this profession without experience, becoming certified is going to help you in better understanding, at least on a conceptual level, the things that you need to know as you are building your career as a project manager. Number 3 is to conduct informational interviews or find a mentor. I can almost guarantee if you are working in a corporate environment, I can't speak for other environments, I've only worked in corporate, but I can almost guarantee if you are working in a corporate environment, there are project managers. And they are going to be the easiest ones for you to access because they are within your company's ecosystem. And so being able to talk to them and get an understanding of what they do on a day-to-day basis will also show you what it means to be a project manager can look different depending on the industry. Now, there are still some overlapping elements. Otherwise, there would be no PMP standard, right? If every project manager and what they did was wildly different, there wouldn't be a standard. And so if you can speak to the project managers that are around you and understand what their experience looks like, understand how they got to be where they are, what you may find is that some people may have started in a completely different field, a completely different role that doesn't necessarily tie directly into project management. So in terms of my experience as a project manager and how I got into this profession, I'm going to do a video dedicated to it. But the short story is that I did a rotation with a company and I was then hired as a project manager upon graduation. That is not usually everyone's case. When I have spoken to other project managers, they tend to come from different spaces and they have different backgrounds. And it can be an asset in having different backgrounds and being able to leverage that knowledge and those skill sets in being a project manager. Now, point number 4 is to decide what the industry is that you'd like to be a project manager within. I mentioned this a little bit before, that project managers exist anywhere there's projects. So you're going to have to do some research to decide, do I want to be a project manager in marketing? Do I want to be a project manager in IT? This question is best answered by asking yourself, what types of projects do you want to manage? And if you are trying to make this pivot, an easier pivot would be to see what projects currently exist in your environment and then seeing if you can shadow the person who is managing them. So even if you are someone who works in marketing, for instance, and you want to work in IT as a project manager, if you can work in marketing as a project manager first, I'm not saying you need to make it a whole thing, right? Where you're there for a long amount of time, but you can just start to get the basic understanding of what project management is and you're using where you're currently at to get that experience. It's going to help you in making that transition into IT as a project manager. Now, point number 5, I mentioned this earlier as well, is going to be a couple of titles for you all to consider looking into when you are doing your job search. So the project manager role is typically not an entry-level role. I did say before that in my experience, I was hired out of college as a project manager, but for the company that I was at specifically, they didn't have project coordinator, junior project manager. They didn't have these roles. They had levels. So I was hired as a project manager level 1. So that was considered entry level for that company that I was at. And so other titles that you could look into are project coordinator, junior project manager, or assistant project manager roles. Looking at these roles are going to be most relevant to you in your time right now as someone who is a project manager without experience and being able to get your foot in the door to hopefully be promoted into being a project manager one day. This was a video answering the question, how do you become a project manager without experience? If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave those below. Also, if you would like to book me for coaching to go over your specific situation, you can book me at the link here. It will also be linked below, and I will speak to you all in my next video.